Is it recording? Can the folks on Zoom hear us?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Okay, it is 4 o'clock. I will call the City of Fort Atkinson Plan Commission meeting to order. 4 p.m. in person and via Zoom at City Hall on the second floor on Tuesday, April 26, 2022. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Highfield.
Here.
Commissioner Kesenick.
Here.
Commissioner Lesko.
Here.
Commissioner Schultz.
Here.
Manager Lemire.
Here.
Engineer Selly.
Here.
Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. Okay, the Plan Commission will receive comments from city residents. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per individual. Anyone wishing to speak is required to sign up in advance or state the following items for the record when called upon: name, address, subject matter, and contact information. No action will be taken on any public comment unless the item is also elsewhere on the agenda. Clerk Everett, do we have anybody signed up? Okay, is there anybody in person wishing to speak for the public comment? Anybody on Zoom wishing to speak for the public comment period? This is the final call for anybody to speak for the public comment. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 4, which is review and possible action relating to the minutes of the March 8th, 2022 regular Plan Commission meeting. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Highfield.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lesko here. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next on the agenda, number 5, review and possible action on the site plan review for the Badger Shops in the Clement Business Park, lot number 11. That's site plan review 2022-02. Engineer Selly.
Yeah, thank you. Let me pull this up on the screen share here so we can kind of see what we're talking about. Give me just a second. Of course, I'm at the wrong spot. There we go. So the application is for the Badger Shops. It's out in the industrial park on lot 11. We've been in discussions with Mr. Wilcom, who's the developer in this situation for a little over a year, refining this proposal and coming up with the various requirements to meet the code. I think it's a really solid proposal, a solid development within the business park. The details of the review were included in the packet. I won't bore everyone with those details, but in general, everything that was required of the development was met. There were a few areas that we need to discuss. I would say they are minor. And those include the following. The city staff was recommending adding a 5-foot wide pedestrian access point from Commerce Parkway into the development. This is just a continuation of the sidewalks that are already placed out there. Second is providing a bicycle parking area that can accommodate at least 9 bicycles that can be accessed from the paved parking area and sidewalk. This is part of our zoning code, and I think Mr. Wilcom has indicated that that's already underway. The third condition was adding additional landscape plantings around building 12. I'll pull up where building 12 is at because this will be something else we'll talk about briefly in a minute with respect to landscaping. Building, I'm going to go to the plan view if that's okay. So building 12 is this building, I believe, right here. Maybe this one right here.
If you want to go to the landscape plan, it's pretty clear.
There we go.
Yep.
I can kind of zoom in here a little bit. So this is shop 12 here along Milky Drive. For those of you on Zoom, I realize this video is cutting out, but I'll try to keep up with it here. So anyway, adding those plantings around the foundation of building 12, as you can see here, they're included on 9 and 5 and not on 12. Again, a fairly minor request there. And then signage plans that meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance to be submitted. They do not need to be submitted with a site plan. We know where the sign is going to go, and we'll be able to approve those at a later date. Per the covenants, the building construction must commence within 24 months of purchase and completion of phase 1, buildings 1 through 8 within 1 year. The phasing plan currently that has been put forward is to build shops 1 through 8, shown here kind of to the left of the page first in phase 1. And then once that proof of concept is finished, to then move on to a phase 2, constructing shops 9 through 14, I think is what we're at, or 17, sorry, in the second phase. And there has been some discussion about the second phase as the market sort of develops around this, requiring larger buildings perhaps. So there is a little bit of latitude there. That would of course come back to Plan Commission for that sort of review at that time. Finally, the last is the detailed phasing plan to be submitted to city staff for approval. The request here is just simply to understand how we're going to end phase 1 and leave that site in a fairly stable condition and ready for phase 2. And that's again a fairly minor concern that we can work out with Mr. Wilkins' engineers. The two things that we do need to discuss related to this site plan approval, again, fairly minor, but I think it's worth giving some time to here. The first is the landscaping point. So as Commission may be aware, in our zoning code, it is based upon a point system. The issue that we're running into here is within the zoning code that is really developed and centered around the construction of a single or perhaps 2 large buildings. So foundation plantings in particular, when we're talking about the length of building perimeter that we have here, creates a little bit of a challenge to meet the code. As you will note, these buildings are fairly close together. So having foundation plantings in between the buildings would be problematic given the need for sun in that area. We're very close to meeting all of the landscaping points that would be required on the site. And we do have some latitude with the commission within the zoning code where insufficient site area remains to comply with all the provisions of that section. The Planning Commission may require compliance to the great extent practical. I'm open to taking questions about that, but in general, I think we're in pretty good shape. We did recommend and mention earlier the foundation plantings around shop 12 there along Milky Drive, but staff would recommend that this be waived in this situation and would be open to any questions from the commission discussing such. Sure.
In between the buildings, I know.
Can you turn on your microphone there?
Thanks. I know in between the buildings, it's a shaded area, but couldn't you put something like hostas, just line them up?
I'm not
Well, I know because I have shaded area and the hostas grow.
Sure.
And you could, and I think I guess the point of the staff maybe recommendation to back off a little bit on that section is just because the extent of the landscaping that's already proposed, and then you have maintenance of all that landscaping long-term, and then you have all of the, it's the city coming back and saying, this X, Y, and Z died, you have to replace, and just the additional time commitment, all of that involved. I think that the landscape plan as proposed with the recommendation that the additional landscaping be provided along shop 12 because it is facing the right of way.
What's going to be in between the 2 buildings?
In between shop 12 and 13.
Well, between, you said the
Grass.
buildings are next
Oh,
to it.
yes, I'm sorry. In
Grass.
between, yeah,
Okay.
all of the buildings is proposed grass.
Okay.
And we did ask them to place, you'll see in the site plan, a couple of bollards in there, particularly on the backside, so we can dissuade any storage of materials in those areas. Yeah, these renderings might give us a slightly better understanding of the vegetation plan. And this is in keeping with the business park. It's important for us to note that when this was conceived, it was conceived as a business park, not an industrial park per se. So this more soft, development with a lot of vegetation and some focus on aesthetics of the buildings is important and is in those covenants within the business park as well.
Andy, this is considered light industrial, is that right? The development?
The zoning for this,
Well, the proposed use, I guess.
it's a great question.
Andy, you want me to jump in on that?
Yeah, Ben, pardon me, I should have introduced you. So Ben Rohr is with Vanderwall and Associates and has been performing quite a bit of review on this for us. Ben, if you can answer that question, please do. I'm searching through a portion of the memo
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, it's right underneath the table in which we had all of the requirements for the bulk dimensions related to the zoning code. Basically, this is going to be a mixture of different uses, and that's pretty common when we look at different proposals of development throughout the community and how the zoning codes are really geared to accommodate multiple uses within the same type of development. You might traditionally think of that in more or less of a strip center where there's commercial uses or office uses or retail uses next to one another. But this is kind of a unique version of that in the business park zoning district. And so it's a combination of office, professional services, indoor maintenance, light industrial, indoor storage, and wholesaling uses by definition within the code. So that provides some flexibility because as the developer has indicated, these shops are intended to accommodate a variety of different small businesses that may have a unique component of maybe they use this space for an office and maybe storage of their landscape vehicles, or they use it for something where they're making something in a very light industrial type fashion. And so it's kind of a combination of a mixture of different uses that doesn't necessarily fall in line with a one specific defined land use.
Okay, thank you for that, Ben. So I just was curious because I had seen, Badger storage noted on the plans, and I was just concerned that it wasn't specifically just for storage.
Yeah, it looks like the agenda is not worded appropriately with that Badger storage, self-storage. This is not a self-storage use.
Okay. Thank you.
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna, any other questions from the Plan Commission on, or comments relating to the landscaping points or the siding, acceptable siding as a building material for the sidewalls?
Yeah, and I can
Can you?
present that a bit. So
Okay.
the covenants of the business park, this is the second item that we just simply need to be comfortable with as a planning commission. Cementitious siding is being used on the sidewalls. The business park covenants require materials, I believe it's masonry materials on the first 20 feet of the sidewalls of a structure. Those materials typically on a large building, the indication there is more brick. But certainly in this situation with the improvements that have been made on the front facing facades of the buildings, I think we can see those a bit in some of the renderings here where we have masonry on at least 50% of the facade of the building, and then coming across to the street facing sides as well. This cementitious siding, which is it's important because it is a very hard and durable material, unlike say a vinyl siding that we're used to seeing in residential applications. Our recommendation from staff is that we do in fact accept the cementatious siding, or we'll just call it the siding here. That we do accept this material for this proposal. And as I said, given the number of shops that we have here and the effort that's been placed in reaching those aesthetic goals, we feel like this is a fairly good recommendation to move forward on. Be happy to answer any questions regarding that as well.
Commissioner Schultz, I have one question. You noted a timeline, buildings 1 through 8 within 1 year for phase 1. Was that agreed upon by the developer, or was that dictated by the city?
That comes out of the covenants of the business park.
Okay.
So upon the sale of the lot to Mr. Wilkham, those covenants will be applied to the documents in that transaction. Any other questions related to either any of the conditions that have been approved or that have been laid forward, or the two recommendations on the code items, the vegetation and the siding?
These are going to be condominiums, correct?
Yes, I believe that the intent from Mr. Wilkham is to create a condominium from these. So ownership of the sides of the individual buildings will exist for those that are interested in having that type of option over a lease. We've laid out the utilities so that they can be individually, or the condominium complex can be created, and that we can install meters to do master metering for the entire condo complex. So we've thought ahead, I guess, in that
Is there
department.
any type of maintenance agreement between them, or is it just going to be handled by management?
They'll come back for a condominium plat to the planning commission, and that's where we will review the maintenance agreement and kind of the details of the condominium association.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the Plan Commission?
Yeah, I have a few comments. I think I believe this development may help a lot of small businesses, especially those kind of operating out of their garages or out of their homes. This may provide them, avenues to kind of legitimize themselves with opportunities for more physical space to move into. And I know that a common concern among residents has been that the Clement Business Park hasn't seen a lot of development in the past couple of years. So I think this is a very welcome investment into the business park, and I hope that it's successful.
Thank you, Commissioner Schultz. Any other questions or comments from the Plan Commission? If there are none, I would entertain a motion to approve the site plan review for the Badger Shops, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff recommendation on page 6 of the staff report, including the waiving those the minimum required landscape points for building foundation plantings. However, noting back up in those recommendations that there are the additional landscape plantings around building 12. And then also including the siding as an acceptable building material for the side walls.
Did you just make a motion?
No, but I set somebody up for a so moved.
Well, I would move to approve the site plan review for Badger Shops in the Clement Business Park, lot number 11, subject to the 8 conditions presented by city staff and including the waiving the landscape
Commissioner,
minimum requirements and the included, and also include the siding as an acceptable option.
Thank you.
That was horrible.
I'll second.
Okay, so Commissioner Highfield seconded. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any additional questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is review and possible action on a site plan review for a, excuse me, for a monument sign with group sign panel for abiding Shepard Lutheran Church, 1401 North High Street, site plan review 2022 -03. Engineer Selly.
Thank you. Get our plan up here. So this location is on High Street. This is many know it as the former Smith Motors building, currently owned by Eli Clout, who's in the audience. There's a couple of churches occupying the space, as well as Midwest Steel awnings or concepts that the Planning Commission did approve a couple of years ago. I think they're doing well in that location. The sign that was put forward meets all of the requirements of the zoning code in terms of the materials, the size. We'll note that this is a group sign. So there are 3 different groups noted on that sign. So it is allowed to be slightly larger. And that's intended to keep us from having to have 3 different signs out there. So a good use of the zoning code in this situation. It is located, sufficiently behind the right of way. And I think it does take over, if I'm not mistaken, an existing pedestal that's I'm sure probably been on Mr. Clout's to-do list for a little while, how to cover that up. So from the staff point of view, it meets all the requirements of the code and we would recommend approval. I'd be happy to take any questions associated with that from the Planning Commission members.
Any questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the site plan review, the monument sign with group sign panel for abiding Shepard Lutheran Church at 1401 North High Street, site plan review 2022-03.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Kesnick.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schultz. Any final questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next on the agenda is review and possible action on a sign, site plan review, wall signs, monument sign with group sign panel for Cube Smart Inc. 1424 Janesville Avenue, site plan review 2022-04. Engineer Selly.
Thank you. So Cube Smart is the former True Storage. I don't know the reasoning for the name change, but the business and use is the same, as is the approvals that we had provided to them. Oh gosh, I think it was last fall when we this came before the commission. They've come back now for the sign portion of things. They've got a total of 3 signs that are well, 4 signs that are on the building itself. And then the monument sign, which is probably what we traditionally think of as a sign from our standpoint, is located out here along Highland Avenue and Janesville Avenue. The signs themselves are in keeping with the zoning code. So we looked at the font sizes, the color display, and I believe the font type comes into play as well. on that. And all of those met the zoning code requirements for signage on the building. And then we also looked at the monument sign as well. Again, a masonry base, fairly low profile, with the opportunity for two. This is a group sign with the opportunity for two tenants. If commission members will recall, there are two outlots in that former parking lot that are for sale. And so our hope is that we will fill up those two spots with some new developments in there in the near future. Again, all of these signs met the requirements of the zoning code. Staff would recommend approval of such, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
I will note that in the recommendation, there are three conditions of approval for, three recommended conditions of approval for this sign package. And those include one, that the location of the monument sign be at least 15 feet from the curb face on Highland Avenue and Janesville Avenue, and that the sign easement shall accommodate any necessary change in the sign location. That's just not marked on the site plan, so we can just include that condition of approval, and certainly they will provide that information to us. Number two, the red sign face proposed on the monument sign must be changed to a different color to complement the approved colors of the building facade. And that's just to remove that red panel and use a color of the company's choice that is compatible to the building elevations. And then three, that city staff will have final approval of that monument sign location and sign face color as outlined in the conditions.
Any questions associated with that?
What colors are we looking for? This is Paul with Elevate Sign Group. Is it okay to speak now, or do I wait till later?
Nope, you're okay to speak.
Yeah, that's we want to have enough contrast. Are we looking to go with the gray on the building? Because Cube either goes red or white with their letters. So that's their branding nationwide. And
Yeah, I don't think we would want red for either of those colors. So either the sign face or the letters. So if we could.
I got charcoal gray. I just looking at what's on that building. You know, it's hard to go with color renderings, you know, for the exact color, but even with this, it's usually a little deeper color gray than they show. You know what I mean? So
so if it's
you want one of the building colors to be the background color.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I present what I know you guys will accept, but then I have to get corporate approval as well. Alrighty. We'll use one of those colors. I'll make sure they spec it and I'll call it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I move to approve the site plan review for the wall signs monument sign with group sign panel for CubeSmart Incorporated, 1424 Janesville Avenue, with the three conditions noted by the city manager.
I feel second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is review and possible action on a preliminary certified survey map, extraterritorial, to create two R2 residential building sites of approximately 1 acre and 0.9 acres in the town of Koshkonong for Andrew and Robin Selly, CSM 2022-02.
As noted, this is my property, so I'll be recusing myself from this approval. Generally speaking, when it's outside of 1.5 miles, we're able to approve these between city manager Lemire and myself per the city council. But we felt it important to bring this to the commission for review.
So as noted in the staff report, this is subject parcel is located outside of the city's future land use planning area outside of the city's long-range urban growth area and outside of the city's urban service boundaries. So the city could not potentially serve this with water and sewer. It's not in our 20-year plan to do so, nor is it in our 20-year plan to designate land use or infrastructure improvements. As such, does the Planning Commission have any questions about this certified survey map?
I'll move to approve the certified survey map, W 7526 Kashkanan Mounds Road in Fort Atkinson.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Highfield and a second by Commissioner Lesko here. Any other questions or comments from the Plan Commission?
I just have a quick question. Andy, the reason for the two different lot widths, is that any particular reason for that?
The minimum lot size, I think that we could create there was 0.8 of an acre. So the one on the left is the smallest, and then the one on the right is an acre that fits a building site for some friends of ours. So
Okay.
no real reason.
Okay.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Number 9, review of additional documentation for 711 Zafky, installation of a monopole communication tower.
Yeah, so this is provided following the approval of the conditional use for the monopole. We had asked for 2 additional pieces of information within that conditional approval. The first was an affidavit from an engineer indicating that in fact this location was a required location based upon the needs analysis that was presented to the Planning Commission by US Cellular. We have received that affidavit from a Mr. Let me find his name, Satanbir Singh. He's a radio frequency engineer with US Cellular, and it was attested to by a notary public. So that condition was met, and the document indicated that in fact this tower must be located at the proposed site to meet the coverage requirements. The second request that we had was for an evaluation by a radio frequency firm to ensure that the state and federal codes were met with respect to mainly to safety. And I think the radio frequency waves that came up during the discussion about the conditional use permit. That has been accomplished by a firm called Waterford. Waterford, I think I can bring up a couple of their analyses here. Without going into too much detail, there are 2 limits that they evaluated. The first is what's called the occupational limit. So this is a limit for trained personnel to be working within the area. The general population limit is a limit that is essentially, as it says, general population. So those that would have no understanding of what's going on up there and might be in the area. The general population limits by the FCC are 5 times that of the occupational limits. So the firm Waterford analyzed the site for both the general population limits as well as the occupational limits, and they analyzed the site at 2 different elevations, actually I think 3. The first was a 0 or ground level elevation. The second was at 5 feet, and the third was at 50 feet, which is essentially the top of the water tower. So if you can imagine sort of an understanding of the density of those radio waves at those various ground levels. The maps that I'm showing you here and are available within the packet are the results of that. In layman's terms, as long as we don't see any reds, we're in pretty good shape here. The yellows and blues are to be expected within those occupational limits. And they're about, the map scale on here, the square is 100 feet. So these blues are somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 feet. And the yellows, I guess I can zoom in, the power of technology. The yellows that we see here are somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 feet. So again, with the water tank here for reference, a fairly limited area where there is a cause, at least, to be aware of the fact that there are radio waves in the area. The recommendations that were provided by Waterford focus largely on signage, indicating that in fact there were radio waves in the area, and that various personnel follow the FCC protocols, some of which require a radio frequency monitor to be worn if working for extended periods. I believe it was in the yellow and red area. My impression of this was really this applies to folks that are working on the tower itself. And in fact, I think there was a recommendation for the tower to be shut down if in fact personnel needed to get up to the level of the antenna arrays. So all in all, certainly I'm no radio frequency engineer, but in reading the report, it appeared to be fairly comprehensive. They referenced the FCC requirements for safety in their analysis, referenced their methods, and most importantly, they put their name at the end of the report and took full responsibility for the analysis, which is, that's part of the engineering profession when you stamp something for the benefit of public safety. So I was looking for that and encouraged to see that. I'd be happy to answer any questions associated with this if commission members may have them, but I think both of these boxes are checked from those conditions of approval for this monopole.
Are there any questions from the Plan Commission?
I have a question. This is Commissioner Kesnick. So is there going to be, and I'm sorry if I don't remember this, but is there going to be any fencing around the base of the tower?
There is fencing. I believe it incorporates the base of the tower. I will double check, but I know it incorporates some of the ground mounted equipment that is there.
And we don't know what the setback of that is off the structure of the tower itself.
I don't. I would have to pull up
Okay.
the plan to double check that.
Okay.
I don't believe that there was that the city had a required setback for that. We did have some requirements, I believe, for the aesthetics of the fence and then the vegetation around the fence from a screening standpoint, but I don't believe there was any setbacks for dimensioning of that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any action that's required here other than just accepting that we've got the additional information that we had sought? And
Yes, you're correct. This is just checking the box, accepting and filing.
and we have we are comfortable with the level of safety as this report indicates.
I am.
Moving forward.
Yep. And as I said, I'm certainly not a radio frequency engineer, but the depth of analysis, the use of what appears to be an industry standard software for the analysis, the dimensions that they supplied specific to our site, for instance, the water tank being 50 feet high is exactly, consistent with what I would expect. I don't see any reason not to trust this report, and they put their name on it, which is to me the most important.
Yeah, and I think that would be my last question is, are you familiar with Waterford Consultants or?
I'm not, no. They did include, I think in an appendix, a bit of a resume of sorts for their capabilities. I did read through that, but I haven't done business with them before.
And we all know that the signs are going to be, that are required will be put on. I mean, they had a bunch of signs on their report.
They did in their recommendations. I will check back to that site plan, but these are federal regulations, I think, that are required here. So we'll make sure that those are adhered to. They may not have been in the site plan. I would be surprised if they were, frankly.
Yeah, I remember seeing
Yeah.
them.
my sense is that those sorts of things are not taken lightly by US Cellular and are put in place, but we certainly at least now know that they should be there and can check to make sure.
I did pull up the packet for the conditional use permit for this on my computer here, and I will note that the monopole and the equipment is proposed to be fenced with landscaping around the exterior of the fence.
Thank you.
Okay, any final questions or comments from the Plan Commission on agenda item number 9? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to number 10, which is adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned at 4:40 PM. Thank you.